politician steal from the national treasury. He has stolen from each and every one of us as citizens. Then why should we celebrate people that steal from the national treasury?
Okay, when you were explaining, you said it is very unconstitutional.
Yes.
Do we have laws that regulate the spending habits of politicians and political parties, especially during campaign period?
There must be what we call spending limit. In America, there is usually spending limit.
Are you saying
during campaign
politicians should declare their resources before campaign starts?
Yes, that is what the law says. It's just like this issue of presenting your asset. The asset declaration form is part of it. When you want to campaign in this country, when you want to vie for any political position in this country, they request for what? The asset declaration.
So how many politicians are still doing that today?
There is non-compliance in this country. That is why we're having problem. Sometimes they falsify that document. When you lie under oath, that is criminal. Even if you win an election, that election stands nullified in a Senate climb because you have deceived the electorate. You lied under oath. Now let me give you an example now. There should be spending limit. But there is one thing I've discovered in this country that is so sad and unfortunate.
Okay.
Those in government use state resources for campaign and for financial inducement. If you are spending your own personal money, I don't care. So long that it is not a stolen fund. It's your own personal money. But now they are using state financial resources, especially a sitting president, a sitting vice president, a sitting governor, a sitting local government chairman that is using state resources to fund his own political party.
For re-election.
For re-election.
What about the politicians who have been out of office, let's say, for 8 years, and then they still spend the same way those that are in office are spending?
Because they feel that now, if you don't spend much for the electorate, the probability of you winning the election is slim.
But we have people who also, they spent a lot of money and still lost elections.
It doesn't count. 10 people are vying for a particular position. It is only one that will be declared as the winner. Both of them are spending the money, fine, their money. They are spending the money. Have you not seen the electorate collecting money from party A and at the same time collecting money from party B, party C, party D?
Is it about the ISB?
At the end of the day, the electorate now decide who among the four that he's going to cast his vote for. But the electorate, is it being fair to those political parties on a moral ground? You received money from 4 different political parties.
Why should you share money?
You're only allowed
Okay.
to cast your vote for one party. So we are talking about the issue of moral integrity on the part of the voters.
Should they even collect money from any of them at all?
No, there is one thing I will tell you today in Nigeria. There is what we call gratification. You know, when the politicians come to you now, he will not give you money that I want you to support me. Sometimes the politician will come to you and give you money, you say, for your kids. You need to buy biscuits for your kids. Indirectly, he is giving you what called financial inducement. And on a moral ground, somebody that gave you money and is fighting for a political position,
okay,
the tendency is there for you to cast your vote for him. So in America, there is what called lobbying. Do you know that labor unions lobby too? They lobby. Politicians also lobby. Even at the Congress in US, there are lobbyists group that they want their bill to sail through at the floor of the Congress. So we are living in a dicey situation. It's so dicey when you're talking about financial inducement. Do you know that we have some media activists today? Before the election, politicians... No, it's relative. Okay. The choice is yours. The ball is in your court. You won't even bother to ask whether it is a financial inducement. You will accept because you don't even have a car. In the first place, as a media activist. But the politician is giving you what? A car as a gift. He can decide to gift you what we call 3-bedroom flat. And now you don't even have a house as a media activist. To him, it's a financial inducement. But you, the receiver, you don't see it what? As a financial inducement. The tendency is there for you to support that candidate as a human being.
Okay, let's talk about the role of godfathers and sponsors when it comes to election campaigns. Because we've heard some politicians after election, they came out to say, I can no longer, continue with trying to placate my sponsors or my godfathers now. Because some of them, they get huge amount of money from these godfathers, from these sponsors. And then when they get into office, they are supposed to do certain things for those godfathers. Or some of them, they now start repaying the money they got from these people. And because of that, they are unable to deliver on their manifesto. It affects governance and every single thing that has to do with them.
You are quite right, Yimi. But there's one thing you must understand, that we have political merchants. And we have those we call political jobbers. And professionals in politics. They are different. One group of people come together that the time has come for us to register a political party in the country so that we can be able to to compensate them. There is what we call entitlement mentality in this country. The Emilio Con syndrome. Entitlement mentality. That it is now my turn to become the next Nigerian president. It's now my turn to become the next governor of my state. The entitlement mentality is there. So we are talking about the political merchants in politics. We are talking about the political bourgeoisies. They are there. It's just like a business a man coming together to pool resources together. Partnership, they are there. So now, what most people normally do is this. Some of them will now go and look for a wealthy man that has money. He's not a politician. I want you to become my godfather. I want you to fund the political campaign. He sees that governor as his own investment. He sees the president as his own investment. Nobody wants to run losses when it comes to the issue of investment. At the expense of the people. At the detriment of what? Good governance. At the detriment of what we call capital infrastructure. Again, expression of nomination form. Expression, you can hear that in most of these major political parties in Nigeria.
100 million.
100 million. Now, when you look at the allowances that the president and the governors enjoy, when you add it up together annually, it is not up to the amount of money they spend for campaign. Then how do they recoup this money back? If not stealing from what? From the national treasury.
There was even a time that the president, gave out his salary. He decided to give out his salary to another cause. That tells you that maybe he doesn't really need the salary.
Those ones are just rhetorics, Yimi. They are rhetorics. We know what is actually going on in this country. When we say politicians are corrupt, it is not easy for the president to steal from the national treasury without connivance from the minister of finance and the coordinating minister of the economy and from the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. That is why we are talking about what we call having an institution that has what we call moral integrity. You know that in the United States, every $1 transaction is being monitored by the Federal Reserve. They call their CBN, Federal Reserve. In Nigeria today, every ₦1 transaction, is it being monitored?
Okay, in a situation like this, Ofino, is it possible for the daughter of a nobody or the son of a nobody to win an election in this country? Will it ever happen?
It can happen.
When?
It is possible.
Okay.
You blame the electorate, especially the poor masses who are complaining of oppression, and you keep voting for your oppressors. You keep voting for your oppressors. Have you not seen politicians boasting? Do you know the amount of money I spent for campaign? Where do you want me to get the money? How to get the money back? They now decide to give the so-called citizens patriotism as dividends of what? Democracy.
Okay.
So what they normally do is what we call empowerment. And when you look at most of this empowerment, it is the party members that are beneficiaries of this empowerment. When we are talking about capital infrastructure, every one of us benefit as citizens, whether you vote for that party or not, whether you vote for that candidate or not. But when you are talking about empowerment or conditional cash transfer, most of the beneficiaries has always been party loyalists and members of certain political party that actually wins that election. So there is a problem on ground. So what we need is, in this country is strong institution, irrespective of the political party that wins election. So it will not be difficult for the president to steal from the national treasury. It will be difficult for the state governor to steal from the state treasury. It will not be difficult for the local government chairman to steal from the local government treasury. We need a strong institution that will be what? Non-partisan.
Can you suggest that institution? Because some have argued that maybe INEC can be in charge of regulating the spending habit of...
Not INEC now. We are talking about the financial institution in this country. We are talking about the Ministry of Finance in this country. They are civil servants. They must be neutral. Civil servants. The Director of Finance. The Director of Monetary Operations. The governor, do you know that the president has the power to ask the central bank governor to print more currency? It will affect our economy. But when the CBN governor said, no, it is unconstitutional, I disagree with you. You know why? It is the president that appoints the central bank governor.
So what happened during the Emefiele period when the former governor, the former president, late Buhari, was in power? Especially with the cashless policy thing. I remember that there was a time that the current president came out to say that he doesn't even understand what is going on in that sector. That he feels this is a way to just frustrate his ambition to become president.
That there is one thing you know, he says something. Only back kepole kekowole amadibo amawole. That shows that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was not in support of the monetary policy being introduced by the central bank governor then, Emefiele. The late Muhammadu Buhari was not in charge of the presidency. He was the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but he was not in charge.
Who was in charge?
I remember this man, Kyari, the late Kyari, who was the chief of staff to the president then. He was so, before he died, he was so powerful. More powerful than the vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. We are talking about the Kyari of this world. We have to be frank and sincere to ourselves. Our constitution is faulty. Why must the constitution say that it is the president that will appoint the INEC chairman? It is the president that will appoint who becomes the central bank governor.
But is it only obtainable in Nigeria? There are other countries, even Western countries, let's not even go far, that the president is in charge of appointing these people, but there are no issues.
You have to look at our peculiarity as a nation. The natural instinct to steal among our politicians. How many politicians do we have in this country that is morally upright? How many judges do we have in this country that is incorruptible? We talk about our morality.
What about the system? Because I think I heard somebody say one time that if the best president, in the world should rule Nigeria as we speak now, is going to fail woefully.
Yes!
It's not about the person alone. It's not about people who work for that person. It's about the system. That even if you have the intentions of doing well, if you have the intentions of making sure that people are okay, the system in a way can corrupt.
Let me give you an example.
It is that you want to do.
The late governor of Oyo State, Senator Abiola Ajimobi of blessed memory. There was one time he went to tour the state in one of the GRAs. He now discovered one thing. He saw a lot of mansions. He was now asking them, who is the owner of this mansion? They now said most of the landlords are directors in Oyo State Civil Service. That was what provoked Ajimobi. That the time has come for him to scrutinize those in Oyo State Civil Service. How come a civil servant can build such type of duplex? How much do they earn? That is how to know a governor that is actually working. He went out on a tour. I'm talking about the late Ajimobi. That was what led to that issue that time. That they now said, what we are going to do is this. We want to do the conducted verification exercise. You know, a lot of civil servants, they lost their job, if you remember then. Those who came with false academic record. That was what provoked that governor. He just decided to say, let me even tour the state among the GRA. So they now told him that most of these houses that you see today are being owned by civil servants. Directors, how much do they earn? We are talking about, the same thing also applies in Abuja. Go to Abuja. Most of those houses you see in Abuja are being owned by federal civil servants at the top cadre. Directors, how much do they earn? That is why I said it's not easy for the governor to steal.
So how do we tackle
It's not easy for the president to steal without connivance
How do we tackle
from the
system?
directors in the civil service.
How do
They
we
are the
tackle
one that will now tell. They are the one that will tell the minister in any portfolio that this is how you are going to steal the money. They teach them. So when we are talking about corruption in this country, it is more of a moral issue. I have to be frank and sincere with you. I have to be very frank and sincere with you. That is why they will say the best president in the world, that when he comes to Nigeria and rule, is going to fail. We are talking about moral issue. Men of integrity. Have you not seen wealthy men still indulging in stealing of public funds? You are already rich before. You are already rich. The money is there, and yet you still decide to steal from our national treasury on a moral ground. Is this justified? We have to be frank and sincere to ourselves. So there is a lot of problem in this country when you are talking about the issue of integrity. What about religious leaders? They also compromise. We have to be frank and sincere to ourselves. Our so-called religious leaders, we have some of them that are corrupt. So there's a big problem when you see politicians coming to them to lobby.
How do we tackle these issues? I mean, the systemic problems.
By the way of a new constitution, that any civil servant that is being indulged in public funds should be dismissed and prosecuted according to the law. The same thing also applies to the elected politicians. Any of them that is being accused of stealing public funds must be impeached and also be prosecuted according to the law. But will it ever happen in this country? Who wrote the constitution?
It's a big problem because I know that recently, I think about last year, we started another, session of, bringing in citizens to also be part of the